According to legend, he was born with a blood clot on his hand, an omen that he would one day dominate the world. Genghis Khan was born as Temujin on April 16, 1162, at the boundary between modern Mongolia and Siberia in the impoverished nomadic Mongolian clan of the Portuguese. In today's video of the Most Powerful Rulers series, we talk about the man who terrorized the world for many years, a man whose conquests rival those of Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan. Losing his father. The Portuguese were led by Genghis Khan's father, who had kidnapped Temujin's mother for marriage. Temujin, later known as Genghis Khan, was just 9 years old when his father was poisoned by a rival Tatar tribe. Even though he was only 10 years old, Genghis Khan volunteered to take over his father's post as tribal chief. Temujin and his family were left to fend for themselves after the tribesmen declined to crown him as their leader. Little Temujin, who would one day conquer the world as Genghis Khan, was now alone in the rugged Mongolian mountains with his little family. Temujin and his siblings used to eat fruits, rotting carcasses, and hunt marmots and other animals to survive. Begta, his half-brother, was the eldest man in their little group, and he took charge of the family. Begta's authority in the family irritated the young Genghis Khan, who grew resentful of him. Then, during a hunting expedition, Begta refused to share the meat with Temujin, and the future Genghis Khan, together with his brother Kassa, slaughtered Begta for this offense. Returning his kidnapped wife. Temujin took over the family after killing Begta. However, being a leader in 12th century Mongolia came at a cost. Intertribal violence was prevalent, and the chief of any tribe was usually the favorite target of the adversaries. An opposing tribe raided Temujin's camp one day in 1183 in order to capture his wife, Borte. Rather than fighting back and defending his wife, Temujin left the attack to save his life, allowing his foes to capture his wife. Only a fool fights a conflict he knows he will lose, Temujin stated. Instead of staying and fighting, he understood he had to live to see another day and build connections with other tribes to bring his wife back. Temujin's blood brother, Jamuka, was his greatest moral supporter during this difficulty. Jamuka and Temujin were not blood relatives, but as children they swore a pledge to be devoted to each other for the rest of their lives. Temujin, on the other hand, required more than Jamuka's warriors to return his bride. So he went to visit Togrul, a respected commander and strong warrior from the Karaite Federation, one of the 5 major Mongol tribal federations. Togrul had an indirect obligation to protect Temujin because he was Temujin's father's sworn brother. Temujin assaulted the tribe that had stolen his bride with Togrul and his blood brother Jamuka. While the pillaging and robbing continued, Temujin moved among the people who were hurriedly fleeing, crying, "Borte, Borte." So he came upon her because Lady Borte was among those fleeing. When she recognized Temujin's voice, she jumped out of the cart and ran towards him. Lady Borte and Khoa Kin both recognized Temujin's reins and tether and grasped them despite the fact that it was still night. He gazed at them, recognized Lady Borte, and they fell into each other's arms in the moonlight and subscribed to our channel. Make sure you do the same to avoid the Khan's wrath. The blood feud with his brother. Bringing his wife back from the enemy strengthened Temujin's power and esteem, but he had not yet been crowned as the great Genghis Khan. With his biological brother Jamuka, he dominated his tribe. However, there was a major clash between the two great warriors' leadership styles. Temujin, on one hand, was primarily concerned with a person's ability to generate results, and he promoted people from poor beginnings to high-ranking army officers. Jamuka, on the other hand, was adamant that higher grades be held solely for Mongolian nobility. Temujin had had a difficult life and was adamantly opposed to the aristocratic silver spoon culture. He understood that a man's genuine worth is determined by his abilities, not by his royal birth. This mindset provided the basis for a fatal feud between him and his blood brother and best friend, Jamuka. Jamuka, unwilling to compromise, left the tribe with his men and did not communicate with Genghis Khan for 2 years. However, Jamuka was responsible for the death of a member of Temujin's tribe who allegedly stole their horses 2 years later. He also unleashed his army on Temujin's tribesmen, splattering their blood across the battlefield. Jamuka kidnapped Temujin's top generals and ordered them to be cooked alive. Temujin couldn't stand such disgrace from his own blood brother and vowed to put an end to it once and for all. He began assembling a well-trained and ferocious army that would annihilate anything that stood in their way. One tribe is like a single arrow, easily snapped, Temujin informed his warriors, but many tribes together would be strong. They were unbreakable. The title Genghis Khan. Temujin and Jamuka's armies clashed at the Battle of the 13 Sides in 1204. Temujin's well-trained army crushed their opponents and Jamuka fled the scene, fearing defeat was coming. Jamuka fled into hiding for the entire winter of 1204, only to be betrayed by his own generals, who took him to Temujin. They expected Temujin to reward them for delivering him Jamuka. Instead, Temujin, who was soon to be crowned Genghis Khan, ordered the execution of the traitorous generals, including Temujin's childhood blood brother, Jamuka. Despite the murder and animosity on both sides, Temujin was delighted to meet Jamuka and extend his friendship once more. But Jamuka declined because he believed that Mongolia could only have one leader. He requested an honorable death from Temujin, which he received. By 1205, Temujin had crushed his final opponents and gathered the heads of several Mongolian clans to a summit. He was now officially known as Genghis Khan, the universal monarch, or Genghis Khan in the west. He now ruled an area the size of modern-day Mongolia, but he wasn't done. The actual violence was yet to be witnessed by the rest of the world. The first foreign expansion. Genghis Khan's first foray beyond Mongolia was against the Xia kingdom of northwestern China. Mongol soldiers were largely cavalrymen who traveled solely on horseback with their horses and weaponry. They didn't travel with supply trains, all they needed were bows and arrows, as well as terrible bloodlust. Xia's kingdom surrendered to Genghis Khan in 1209. This was only the start of Genghis Khan's terror in distant lands. Northern China's Jin Dynasty king underestimated Genghis Khan and begged him to submit to him. As you might expect, no one gets away with talking to the great Mongol ruler in that manner. Throughout 1211 and 1214, the Mongols tormented peasants in the hinterlands, forcing many to abandon their farms and return to the cities. There was a motive for first ravaging the countryside. The Mongols intended to starve their adversaries by cutting off the food supply. The Jin rulers had little alternative but to reduce the number of mouths to feed, which led to the deaths of thousands of their own people. When the Mongols invaded Zhongdu in 1214, the tables were finally turned. The Jin dynasty, who had previously requested Genghis Khan's surrender, now submitted to the Great Khan. But the hostility didn't stop there. The Mongols conquered the Jin dynasty in the Battle of Zhongdu in 1215, forcing the Jin rulers to flee their capital. Western Asia attacks and invasion. Genghis Khan most likely had no plans to invade Western Asia and challenge the Khwarezmian Empire, but he recognized a commercial opportunity with the Khwarezmian monarchs because they controlled a large portion of the Silk Road. The Khan brought his caravan packed with commodities as a gesture of goodwill to officially establish commercial connections between the two mighty empires. However, Inalchuk, the governor of the Khwarezmian city of Otra, was suspicious of the Great Khan's caravan and assaulted them, believing that they were spies. Inalchuk had no idea who he was up against. However, Genghis Khan acted like the bigger man and dispatched 3 men to speak with the ruler of the Khwarezmian kingdom, Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad. The Shah, however, beheaded one of the soldiers and returned the other 2 to Genghis Khan with the severed head. This insult infuriated Genghis Khan, who unleashed an army of 100,000 lethal Mongol soldiers on the Shah. The Mongols conquered Otra, where their convoy was ambushed. Genghis ordered that citizens be slaughtered and enslaved. Genghis Khan also ordered a cruel punishment for Inalchuk, the governor who attacked his caravan and rejected his cooperation. The Great Khan ordered his troops to inject molten silver into Inalchuk's eyes and ears. The Shah at last realized whom he had wronged. He fled the war because he knew he was doomed. He died suddenly thereafter, and the Mongols never arrested him. He was exceedingly fortunate that Genghis Khan never discovered him alive, for the torturing would have been horrific. Genghis Khan directed his troops to demolish the Khwarezmian Empire in its entirety, destroying royal buildings, farmlands, and even innocent civilians. After wreaking havoc and death in Samarkand's capital city, the Mongols proceeded on to the Khwarezmian Empire's next target, the city of Bukhara, in 1220. Following the destruction of Bukhara, the Khan's army marched towards Urgench in modern-day Turkmenistan, which was still under Khwarezmian rule. Urgench proved to be the hardest country to conquer since the topography was so different from what the Mongols were used to. Nonetheless, they eventually triumphed and destroyed an entire empire that had offended the Great Khan. Death. When Genghis Khan launched an attack on the Khwarezmian kingdom, the Western Shia rulers of modern-day northwest China refused to send troops to help the Mongols. After being destroyed by the Mongols, the Jin dynasty forged an alliance with the Western Shia kings to resist Genghis Khan's dominion. They believed Genghis Khan couldn't handle the uprising because he was too preoccupied with invading Persia. After annihilating the Khwarezmian kingdom, the Khan went to Mongolia and exacted revenge on Western Shia for betraying him. Genghis Khan began destroying their cities one by one, and his opponents surrendered as usual. However, the Khan could not forgive them, and the entire imperial family was executed, effectively ending their lineage. Genghis Khan fell off a horse and died as a result of his injuries. Other sources, however, suggest that he died as a result of his battle wounds. It's difficult to believe any source completely because Genghis Khan kept his personal life very private. He never even allowed someone to paint his portrait. To this day, no one knows where he is buried. Even the soldiers who assisted in the burying of the Khan's mortal body were executed so that they would not reveal the location of his tomb. Even after 1,000 years, no one can touch him, and he remains unbeaten. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you did enjoy it, subscribe and watch this video to learn about the horrors committed by Joseph Stalin.